there, Erin from Morehouse Farm here with today's knitting tip, which is how to purl in the Norwegian style. And the benefit of this style is that it lets us hold the yarn in the back, just like we do when we're continental knitting, and transfers the motion to the right hand. So if you have any left hand issues, like I do with the tendinitis, this could be a solution for us. Now, when we're thinking about regular continental purling, needle comes back to front, you have to wrap it up and grab it, push it back through. I know you guys are going to be a lot smoother continental purlers than I am because this really does hurt the motion on my left hand, which is why I started exploring this technique. And it's not really all that different in terms of the motion, it's just transferring it to the right needle, and I don't have any trouble moving that, so that's what's attractive to me. Now, I've got the yarn tensioned over my left pointer finger, and I want to bring the needle on the right side behind it. Okay, so this kind of looks like a yarn over if you are purling continental or knitting, used to knitting continental, but it brings the yarn to the back of the work with the needle behind it. And that allows you to poke the needle into the stitch as you normally would purl-wise. Now you're going to bring your needles parallel and wrap the yarn around the needle on the right side again, and then take that loop back out the way you came. So let me do that again in slow motion. We're going to bring the right needle behind the yarn, even though the yarn is in back, and we're going to stick the needle in purl-wise as we normally would. But then I'm going to bring my needle tips parallel to wrap this yarn, the working yarn, around the needle again, and then bring it out through the stitch and slide the old stitch off the needle. So it's the same motion as when I bring my yarn forward and wrapping that up. But notice I can keep my left pointer finger still. When I bring the right needle behind the yarn, poke it in, bring the right needle up parallel with the left almost, grab the yarn again, and then back out the way I came. And I think that's the trickiest part. I notice new knitters often struggle with this just with regular stitches is you gotta go out the stitch, the old one, the same way you came in. So if you try to come forward, that's not purling, and you're going to end up wrapping this stitch and purling it twice. Okay, so back out the same way you came in. The other thing is you've got to make sure that when you grab this second stitch, you do go back out that way and drop it off so this doesn't become a permanent yarn over, because that's going to make obviously an increase that you don't want right there. So keep grabbing and practicing, and yes, this is going to feel really, really awkward, just as any new technique does, but it gets a whole lot smoother. And then when you've got it down and you need to switch to knitting the next stitch, and then purling a stitch, and then knitting a stitch, and then purling a stitch, hey, that's pretty darn cool. Happy knitting from Morehouse Farm.